Hello, and welcome to the Thyroid Warrior podcast. I'm Ebony, and I'm here as your wellness facilitator. I'm going to be sharing my experiences in managing Hashimoto's disease. I really hope that it'll help you on your personal journey. Keep in mind, however, this does not substitute for medical advice. It is only for your information and motivational purposes only. Now, let's get started. All right, everyone. As promised, we have the amazing Kristin with us here today, and she is going to help us really and truly understand everything about food allergies, because you and I know that it's very easy to have instances where we're trying to navigate this food space with an autoimmune condition or a thyroid disease, but then you think that, oh, I just get a stomach ache, or, oh, my mouth itches, or I just can't have peaches, when in reality, you may in fact have a food allergy, and it doesn't always require you to have a severe reaction, or sometimes it can, but you have to also understand that you can have adult onset of food allergies. You can have them as a child. They can change over time. And I'm just really excited to have Kristin today so that she can really share her knowledge with us, dispel some common myths, and just help us understand how to navigate this space. So Kristin, welcome.
Thank you, Ebony. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it.
Yes, I'm so excited that you're here. And I just want to go ahead and start right out the gate. And can you just tell us what exactly are food allergies?
A food allergy happens when the body's immune system thinks certain foods are harmful and then fights the harmful food by causing a reaction or an allergic reaction. There are proteins found in foods, whether it's plant food or animals. And when a person says they have a food allergy, their body reacts to that particular protein in the food. So let's say, for instance, I'm allergic to peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
And when I eat peanuts, my lips might swell, or my throat gets a little itchy, or I start coughing. That's an allergic reaction. And my body's having an allergic reaction to the protein in the peanuts. And when that happens, you need to be very careful and make sure you administer your or go through your doctor's orders of what you should do. Typically that's administering epinephrine if you have two body systems reactions, like your stomach and your throat, or your nasal cavities, like you're sneezing and there's some gastro issues going on.
Oh, and it's interesting that you said two body systems, because when I think food allergies, I'm going to be honest, because this is just me and my ignorance. I don't think, okay, food allergies can impact just one or multiple. In my mind, it's just like, woo, this is bad. And everyone freaks out about it, especially now. And I don't know if food allergies are becoming more common lately or what's really going on. But along those lines, what are the common types of allergens?
So in the United States, there are 8 common food allergies, and those are peanuts, tree nuts, wheat, dairy, egg, shellfish, fish, and soy. And those 8 foods cause the most reactions in this country. And they send a person to the emergency room because of an allergic reaction every 3 minutes.
Oh, dear.
Yes. Every 3 minutes, someone has had an allergic reaction and is rushed off to the emergency room or visits and walks in the door.
Are there typical symptoms that you should look out for?
There are. When you have an allergic reaction, typically it's maybe tingling of your tongue, or swelling of your tongue, swelling of your eyes, your lips, having any kind of gastro issues, possibly diarrhea, vomiting, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, wheezing. You can have a skin rash, kind of like hives, itching, and there are all a host of different reactions that happen. And when I was talking before about the two body systems, anytime you have those two body systems, like full body of hives and, your lip swells or your eye swells, that's a severe allergic reaction. And you're going to want to use your doctor prescribed epinephrine to help that reaction.
Oh, I see. So when is it appropriate to have an allergy test done?
Well, as soon as you suspect possibly that you think you have an allergy.
Got it.
As soon as you think that you're allergic to a food, you definitely want to get checked out by a board certified allergist. And they will do a host of different tests, whether it's a combination of skin prick and blood tests to kind of determine your allergies. And they also particularly go by your previous history. For example, all three of my children have multiple life-threatening food allergies, and of those top 8 food allergens, everyone in my family, including my husband, has a combination of 7 of the top 8.
Oh.
And my middle son has the most. He's allergic to wheat, dairy, egg, peanuts, and tree nuts. And the first time he had an anaphylactic reaction, which is a severe allergic reaction, he had just turned 1, and it was the day after his first birthday. And during his birthday party, I kept giving him ice cream and cake, and I was puzzled because he kept spitting it out of his mouth, and I couldn't really understand why this baby was spitting sweet food out of his mouth. I mean, I would think that would be the joy of birthday cake, or the joy of a birthday party, cake, ice cream, but he wasn't having it. And I just thought it was strange and kind of dismissed it. He didn't really have any symptoms, but the next day, we gave him cottage cheese and toast, and it just escalated from there. He was lethargic. He was drooling heavy because his throat was swelling. And to make a long story short, we rushed him to the emergency room, and it was a very, very scary emergency ride. And after that, he was tested because I just mentioned he had, wheat, dairy, egg. And he was tested for all 3 of those. And we found out he was allergic to all 3, which was a complete shock because at the time I really didn't know anyone who was allergic to maybe more than one thing. So that was interesting. But we made sure that we went to a board certified allergist, and he gave us a allergy plan, a life-threatening allergy management plan of what we need to do, what symptoms to look for, what medications we use. Obviously, your doctor will tell you exactly what's needed, but for us, we use epinephrine because that's really the only medication that will stop an anaphylactic reaction. And if you have a food allergy, it's always important to make sure you carry that epinephrine with you because you never know when you might have that allergic reaction.
Got it. That sounds horrific. And I couldn't even imagine going through that. However, I know that there are so many people who have food allergies, and I just kudos to you for being able to really manage that with your family. And I know that can't be easy. So.
No, it's definitely not easy, and it's a day-by-day process. Some days are better than others, but one thing that we really wanted to instill in our children is even though you have food allergies, that doesn't change who you are. You're not your food allergy, and you can go and do anything you want, and you shouldn't really let your food allergies hinder you in life.
That's pretty awesome. And you've taught your children, and I've met them, and they're all wonderful little human beings. But how do you really check for them? Where do they hide? What are some tips that you have in terms of reading food labels and packages and understanding ingredients? Are there even ingredients that you wouldn't necessarily think of? are considered an allergen? Like, how do you navigate that?
So we have to read every ingredient on a package that comes from a store. And there's something called the Food Allergy Labeling Consumer Protection Act, which mandates that any food that's processed commercially needs to have labeling in plain English, and that if it contains any of those top 8 allergens I mentioned earlier, that it's in plain English, not the Latin name for peanuts, but the actual name of peanut. It doesn't necessarily have to be bold or say may contain or processed in a facility, but it does need to say peanuts or tree nuts or shellfish and the ingredient labels. So we start out by reading every single ingredient label. And if there isn't an ingredient label, we just don't eat it because it's not worth that chance. So when we're in the grocery store, we read every single thing and make sure it's safe for us. That's one of the things, when you have a little one and you're teaching them how to read. My kids learn how to read ingredient labels first.
Smart.
So I made sure they understood, they knew what the word peanut was and how it was spelled, and egg. And many times adults would give them food that, they would say was safe or would think was safe. And so I had my kids double check to make sure it was safe. And a couple of times they've handed it back and said, no, it says it contains peanuts or it contains tree nuts. So label reading is very, very, very important. However, labeling that food allergy, that Protection Act doesn't apply to some things like cosmetics and shampoos and other things like that. So you can have allergies that are hidden in those things like hand soap. There's a very prominent brand of hand soap that has a scent or a flavor that has milk in it. And you would never think that milk would be in a hand soap. And with my middle son and his allergies, I should have probably seen it in advance, because I remember there was a time when I used this really nice baby lotion, and it was sweetened with honey and milk. And every time I put it on him at night, he would scream murder. And I just really figured he didn't like it. So I just discontinued it. But now, hindsight, I know he did not like it. His body was reacting to that. So you definitely have to be careful about any of those products that don't necessarily have ingredient labels, but kind of doing a little homework when you're checking in things that have hidden allergens like pet food or cosmetics or things like that.
Oh dear. I didn't even think about the soaps and the shampoos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because my little cousin has celiac disease, and I went to the dentist the other day, and right as I was going in there, I read this study about gluten and fillings and different, fillers that you would have when you go to the dentist. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh, and I know, like, I was tested for celiac disease, and we found out that I have a gluten sensitivity, but for the most part, I still function as if I have a gluten allergy, because I don't want to constantly have to wonder or question, like, oh, how am I going to feel today? Am I going to be lethargic? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? I just stay away from it, because the reaction that I have in terms of just like the GI upset and I itch, and even with certain fruits now I'm noticing like, oh, my lips are starting to get a little itchy. I probably shouldn't eat that anymore, but it just tastes so good sometimes. But, it's not really worth it, as you said. So when you go and you have that allergy test done, for example, how did you guys start planning out your food and how you would navigate that space? Do you come up with recipes? Do you have to modify recipes because of those allergies and find substitutes? What are some good substitutes that you use, for example?
Well, I can tell you this. 2019 world of free from foods, like gluten-free foods, is very different from 2003 world of gluten-free foods. And like you were mentioning about celiac disease and food allergies, we're all kind of in the same family. I mean, celiac is a little different with food allergies. And I have many, many, many friends who have celiac disease, or their children have celiac disease. So they need a gluten-free diet. So no wheat, no barley, rye. And their body reacts differently than maybe an anaphylactic reaction. But we kind of all have a similar diet. And one of those is a gluten-free diet, for example, for someone with a wheat allergy. So a wheat allergy is when someone is allergic to the protein in wheat.
Mm-hmm.
So my son has a wheat allergy. We eat gluten-free foods. We still have to read the label because they've gotten fancy. Manufacturers have gotten a little fancy about removing gluten in foods, but still leaving wheat protein, which, doesn't make sense to me because I'm not a scientist. But it just, you still need to read the ingredient labels. So we tend to eat a lot of gluten-free foods. And we realized very early on when my son was diagnosed that even if we were to cook wheat pasta, for example, if I was making spaghetti and I would cook wheat pasta, he couldn't even be in the same room or in the home at the time I was cooking it because the protein in the wheat pasta would become aerosolized. He'd inhale it and start coughing. So even though he didn't ingest it, he still was inhaling the protein and his body was still having a reaction. So from that point on, we just decided as a family we would all eat gluten-free, which is an interesting thing to do when you've eaten gluten your entire life, or wheat or dairy or nuts. One way that we prep for our meals is to have 10 to 15 different go-to meals. And these are things that, everyone in the family likes. Their ingredients are easy, they're delicious, and they're readily available at the grocery stores that we frequent. And when I'm purchasing groceries, I go in and I read all the ingredient labels because even though a manufacturer has a safe food in the past, that doesn't necessarily mean that the food that we normally get is still safe. So you always want to make sure you read the ingredient labels. And I just plan out a menu like any other parent kind of would to save time and money. And by doing that, I've kind of taken away the stress and anxiety of navigating food allergies because it just makes it that much more easier.
Got it. So what kind of lessons learned can you share about managing food allergies in your home?
Well, you have to take it day by day. When you're first diagnosed with a food allergy, understand that it may seem like you're going through the different stages of grief. You're angry, you're upset, you're frustrated, you you've adjusted to it and you deal with it and you kind of want to move on. But sometimes I still, after, 16 years of navigating this, I still cycle through the degrees of grief myself, even when I'm helping my clients. And once you have your results, you kind of process it, make sure that you're sharing with loved ones, whether if it's a child that has food allergies, you're sharing the information with, family, friends. You show them how to use life-threatening medication like the EpiPen, or whether it's an Aubi-Q, the epinephrine injectors. And if your child's in school, you make sure that you are able to keep them safe by having a plan in place, which is called a 504 plan. And that's like a legally binding document that has a list of accommodations that your child needs to be included in things at school. But when you learn how to manage it, you really have to take it day by day. In some years, Halloween is just not my favorite month. October isn't my favorite month. Some years it's not a big deal, but at the end of the day, you take it day by day. You want to surround yourself with people who can offer you support, and also seek someone who can advocate on your behalf. So you have someone in your corner that can kind of help you and kind of speak the language of whether it's schools or understanding grocery stores or explaining things to you, someone that has kind of been there and done it and can make sure that you kind of skip go and don't have to learn the hard way.
Awesome. So, what is one of your most favorite allergy friendly thing to cook with?
Oh my goodness. That is a difficult question. Um, it really depends. I mean, we eat what everyone else does. We eat tacos, we eat spaghetti, we eat hamburgers, turkey burgers. Our food just looks a little different. It tastes the same because it's delicious. But I would say one of my favorite finds in the last couple of years is a vegan, so it's a dairy-free Parmesan shred, and oh my Lord, it is amazing. I mean, it's just life-changing, and it tastes very similar to a really nice Parmesan dairy cheese, but that's one of my favorites. And then I also kind of stick to brands that are free from those top 8 allergens, and there's some really good brands out there like Enjoy Life Foods and Made Good Foods that process in a facility that are free from the top 8 allergens. So I guess if I had to pick a favorite food, it would definitely be the Parmesan. And if I had to pick one of my top 3 favorite sweets to eat, it definitely would be an Enjoy Life chocolate chip cookie. Gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, and delicious.
I like it. I actually just got the lentil chips that you were telling me about.
Yeah.
And I got some, I think it's Good Life. They're protein bites, but they had raspberry. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get these.
Yeah. So the Enjoy Life protein bites with the raspberry are amazing.
Okay, great.
It's because we try to eat them all.
Well, good. So last thing, how can we learn more about you? Where can we find your great information?
Well, you can contact me a couple different ways. You can visit my website, www.theprioritizegroup.com, and that's www.theprioritized group.com. I'm also on Instagram, The Prioritized Group, Facebook, The Prioritized Group, or you can feel free to email me at hello@theprioritizedgroup.com.
Awesome. And please tell me you have some services and or goods or things that you're working on so that we can find these things. Like what are you working on? What are you advocating for these days?
So in addition to kind of working with parents, I offer services that help parents whose children have food allergies navigate school systems. And I mentioned earlier about the 504 plan. Well, I help parents write this plan. I help them advocate for their children in school. So that's a kind of guide that I have for parents. And I also kind of help with lunch. So if you're interested in knowing what kind of brands that you need if you are dairy-free or egg-free, I'm your person. I've worked for over 16 years in the disability community and the food allergy community, and love being able to kind of help parents kind of navigate diagnosis and daily life. So.
Awesome. Well, I am so grateful that you spent some time with us today. And guys, don't worry. I am going to have all of the information so that you can reach out to Kristin. And as always, be happy, be whole, and be well. Take care. Okay, Thyroid Warriors, get out there and take things one step at a time. Remember, be great, reflect on your triumphs, and as always, be well. Take care.